All right. Time is 4 o'clock on the dot. We are at the top of the hour and we will get started with today's session. My name is Asia Simpson. I'm your wellness and benefits consultant for Pomona Unified School District. Many of you may have seen me, and if you are attending this session live, we will have an opportunity at the end to answer Q&A. We will be having today's presentation presented to us by Brendan Vigorito. And this session will be on eldercare financial planning. This session will go approximately somewhere in the neighborhood of about an hour, 45 minutes, depending upon how many questions and how we progress through the slide information. If you have to leave for whatever reason, this session is being recorded, but I encourage you to stay through the whole thing. If you know someone who is going to be attending late, no worries. They will be able to recap the first part of this session if they miss any portion of it. For housekeeping standpoint, please make sure that you keep yourself on mute until you are ready to answer any questions. That way we will keep everything going and flowing and everyone can hear all of the important information that Mr. Vigorito has to share with us today. With all of that being said, I will go ahead and turn the reins over to you, Brendan, so that you can share with us all the wonderful information that you have to share with us today.
Okay, Asia, thank you so much. And again, welcome everyone. My name is Brendan. I do have the chat feature open, so anytime if I say something you don't quite understand it, or if you want me to repeat, or if you have a question, again, feel free. You can put that into the chat to me, as well as I'll also save time at the end of today's session and be glad to answer any additional questions that you have. But one of the things that I always find helpful is you may want to grab a piece of paper and something to write with, because along the way, there's maybe some things that you're going to want to jot down, maybe make a note to yourself, say, hey, you know what, I really ought to check up on this, or this is something that's important to me. And a lot of times, what we're going to cover today, it's basically a combination of a couple of topics. So we're definitely going to be talking about Social Security. We're going to be talking about the Social Security payments, that they are not automatic, and the plans that you and I need to put in place in order for us to make the best decisions possible. So on that piece of paper and pen that you have available, one of the things that I want you to write down is you need to be getting your Social Security login and password. So if you're sitting here, whether you're listening to this recording later on, but if you do not have a login and password with Social Security, I'm going to recommend that you go ahead and you get that. And we'll share the link later on in today's session for you to get that. And I know some of you are probably thinking, well, wait a minute, you don't understand. I'm not looking to collect Social Security myself for 20 years, 30 years down the road. Do I still need that login and password with Social Security? And the answer is yes. And I'm going to cover the reason why I want you to do that right up front, and why I want you to get familiar with it is that when we go to collect our Social Security benefit is calculated on the 35 highest years of our earnings. So while we're working, each year when you complete your tax return, the IRS is to take the information that you submit to them, and they're to take that information and provide it over to Social Security. However, I come across people every single month that never did their due diligence, that never checked on this, and then all of a sudden now they're getting ready to retire and they realize, you know what, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, mistakes were made and the proper information wasn't transferred over. So guess what? It's going to have an impact on their Social Security benefit. So again, doesn't matter how long you're planning on before you're looking at Social Security, again, get that login and password, make a note of that, and follow up. And then we'll talk about Medicare basics. And again, if you're sitting here today and saying, hey, you know what, these just seem to be complicated topics, I want you to realize you're not alone. And what we're going to do today with the material we're going to cover today, I'm going to try to break it down into kind of bite-sized pieces so that you'll have an understanding of the different options we have available to us and the different choices that we need to make, as well as I'm going to share resources that's going to help you to be able to meet with your loved ones and again to get a number of different plans in place. And then also we'll be talking about some of the warning signs that your loved ones, again, basically they may need some further assistance from you. They may need you to be able to assist them because a lot of times we pick up the signs well after warning signs have been available. A lot of times those warning signs exist for a number of years before people will really have difficulties. So again, we want you to be aware of those. And then I also want you to be aware of there's a number of different scammers out there, and those over the age of 62 are more likely to be scammed than anyone else. Now, concerning identity theft, it's usually the younger side, 18 to 24-year-olds, most likely to be victimized by identity theft. But when it comes to scams, those that are older are more likely to be victimized by scams because a lot of times these people, they have a way of kind of gaining someone's confidence and they're very good at what they do. So again, we're going to talk about some of those different scams. And again, we have to do our due diligence and come up with ways to minimize, our chances on having our loved ones be victimized by those scams. So one of the things I want you to think about for a minute, and again, the first place that I want you to begin with, again, get that login and password with Social Security. And once you get that, you're able to take a look at what are your projected benefits. And it will begin at age 62. So you can look at it and say, okay, if either for yourself or for a loved one that you're helping with, that you can say, okay, now at age 62, this is what my anticipated Social Security benefit will be. Then if you wait to age 63, that number is going to tick up a little bit and it will keep going up year by year until you get to your full retirement age. Now, your full retirement age, it's going to be dependent upon your birth year. For example, if you were born, 1954 or prior, then your full retirement age is age 66. Now, from 1954 to 1955, each year after 1954, that full retirement age ticks up 2 months per year. So you see, for example, if someone was born in 1959, that's going to be basically 5 years after 1954, and at 2 months per year, it's a total of 10 months. So their full retirement age would be age 66 and 10 months. Those born, after 1960 and later, their full retirement age goes to age 67. Now, the other thing you can take a look at, again, that's why you need to get that login and password with Social Security. From full retirement age going up to age 70, what's going to happen is there's going to be an increased benefit that the consumer could wait if they decided to hold off their benefits between the full retirement age and age 70. So again, as you begin to look at this, you say, wow, I didn't realize I have a number of different choices that are available to me. That's why I realized, guess what? Most of the time as consumers, most consumers really don't understand all the different options that you have available to you. Now with Social Security, some of the choices you make, you can change later on, and some choices you can't change later on. So again, that's why I want to give you as much information as possible so that you can make an informed decision as to what's in your best interest. There's another term that you need to be familiar with, and that is the primary insurance amount. And basically what that is, that's the benefit that's computed at age 62 that will be paid out at your full retirement age. So again, once you get that login and password, you can take a look at those different options that are available to you. Now, the other thing that is one of the great things with Social Security, with your Social Security benefit, there's what's factored in is what we refer to as a cost of living adjustment. So in October of every year, they get together and they basically determine what that cost of living adjustment is going to be for Social Security for the next year. For example, in October of this year, they're going to come out with the number and say, okay, based upon our consumer price index, what we expect to happen once we get into January 1st, 2026, we expect that the Social Security amount is going to increase by whatever percentage. Now, generally speaking, it can go anywhere from 1.5% to 4 or 5%, depending upon what happens in our economy. So from year to year, we're never not quite sure what's going to happen. So that's why, again, it's something that we need to be doing our due diligence, and we've got to kind of, be watching over this. So again, realize this can be complicated. But again, that's why I want you to be able to make an informed choice as a consumer. A couple of great things with Social Security as compared to any annuity or any retirement accounts that you have is basically Social Security is what we refer to as lifetime benefits, which means you cannot outlive your Social Security. Doesn't matter how old you get, guess what? You'll still be able to collect on your Social Security. And then depending upon the cost of living, there's always those cost of living adjustments that are made to your Social Security benefit. Again, that's unlike those retirement accounts or unlike pensions or annuities you have. Those two elements are great features of Social Security. Now, there's a number of people that can actually collect on your Social Security. So, for example, that would be you as the worker, the person that has the Social Security number, as well as your spouse can also collect on your Social Security. If there's a divorced spouse, we'll talk about the conditions where they could still collect on your Social Security. Or if you pass away, then the surviving spouse can be able to collect on your Social Security. So again, we're going to go into these all in a little bit greater detail. Now, there's an earnings test. And basically what this earning test is if you're collecting your Social Security before your full retirement age. And again, remember your full retirement age is basically going to be anywhere from age 66 to age 67. So let's say, for example, you were born in 1960. That means your full retirement age is age 67. Now, if you decide to collect your Social Security before that, for example, if you say, hey, you know what, I'm 63, I've had enough working, I want to actually begin to collect my Social Security at age 63, you have the right to do that. And you also have the right to continue working. But in this year, in 2025, and again, the numbers are going to change from year to year. That means you can make the first $23,400 this year, and you would receive all the Social Security benefits. If you earn more than $23,400, $1 is going to be withheld for every $2 that basically you earn with Social Security. So you realize, you say, wow, they're going to take a big chunk of that. And again, they will. That's why, again, you've got to determine all the different options that are available to you and what is the choice that you want to make. Now, once you get to that full retirement age, there is no earnings test. Okay. So, for example, someone born in age from year 1960 on, once they hit that full retirement age, they can begin to collect. And the withholding of the dollar for every $2 earned, that is no longer going to be in play. However, the Social Security benefit itself will still could be taxed. So again, a portion of Social Security tax, depending upon how you file your taxes and the amount of income you have coming into your household, will determine how much of your Social Security will be considered as taxable income. Now, there's also discussions that are going on as to whether they want to exempt out Social Security earnings from being taxed. That's one of the things that is being discussed. And, they haven't come to any conclusion yet. But again, you and I have to realize that Social Security is something that is constantly changing. The laws are being changed every single year as far as the amounts. So what we tell you today may change tomorrow. So again, that's why I always share with you, again, you've got to make sure that you're doing your due diligence and you're staying on top of this. Now, there's Medicare, and we're going to also take a look at Medicaid. So first of all, on the left-hand side of your screen, we're going to spend a few minutes talking about Medicare. And what Medicare is, it's a federal health insurance program. And once someone reaches age 65, they're able to then go on Medicare. And you can file for Medicare 3 months prior to you turning age 65. Now, there are certain disabilities, for example, where someone could actually enroll in Medicare prior to age 65. So again, certain disabilities will let you go on Medicare prior to age 65. But unless you're working by the time you turn age 65, they're going to want you to go on Medicare. Now, what Medicaid is, it's a combination. It's a joint federal program as well as a state program that's basically going to help pay for the healthcare costs, especially if there's limited income within a household. So again, there are people that, prior to age 65, they will go on a Medicaid program as compared to a Medicare program. Now, this is where sometimes people get confused when they begin to look up and looking into Medicare. There's basically a number of different parts of Medicare, and sometimes people refer to this as the Medicare alphabet. So there's all different parts. So on the screen in front of you, we're going to take a look at 4 basic parts on this particular slide. We're going to go with parts A through D. Now, again, to get Medicare coverage, okay, and that would, again, the basic coverage begins with Part A and or Part B. You have to be a U.S. citizen and you have to be lawfully present, be able to lawfully be present in the United States. So what Part A is, this is the part that sometimes is referred to as the free part of Medicare. So at age 65, if you wanted Part A, that would provide care and the services that you'd receive either as an inpatient, again, whether it's in a hospital or a skilled nursing facility. So that part is available to you at no cost. Part B is the part where it kick in that would pay for doctor's visits, it would pay for care and the services that you may be required to have as an outpatient. Now, there is a cost associated with Part B. Part C is basically any of the Medicare Advantage plans, which is going to take a combination of Part A and B, and they usually add in additional coverages. They usually add in additional benefits. For example, one of the benefits that's usually added in is Part D, which is the prescription drug program. But in order for you to take advantage of the Medicare Advantage plans, you would need to have Part A and Part B. I know this can get complicated. Again, if you have any questions or need me to repeat anything, feel free to put it right into the chat. And then I'll also take time to, answer any additional questions that you have. So again, what Part A covers, it would be your inpatient stay in the hospitals or skilled nursing facilities, hospice care, home health care that would come in. Again, that's covered and there's no cost to Part A. Part B, that would include basically doctor's services or any other healthcare providers you get, again, whether you're receiving care as an outpatient, or it will also help with durable medical equipment, and it will also cover some of the different preventative services. So, as far as those preventative services, you see there's a number of different screenings, there's a number of different wellness checks that will be included in that Medicare Part B. So, again, you can also get medical nutrition therapy, you can get tested for glaucoma, again, just a ton of different areas that are covered. And it's sometimes there may be something specifically you're looking for. Then again, you can simply reach out to Medicare and ask them if this would be something that would be that would be covered under preventative care. So again, there's a lot of different things that your coverage will care. Basic questions, and sometimes these are the areas that people ask about that are not covered by Medicare. So I want to cover the things that aren't covered. For example, if you wanted acupuncture, that would not be covered by Medicare. If you're looking for hearing aids or the different hearing aid exams, those are not covered. Dental work is not covered, dentures, and then long-term care. And sometimes that's also referred to as custodial care, is also not covered by Medicare as well. And then if there was any sort of cosmetic surgery, that's also not going to be covered. So when you get into Medicare Part C and Part D, okay, so again, medical care Part C, that would be the different Medicare Advantage plans. And again, remember that everything is state specific. So in your particular state, there's a certain types of plans that the state is going to recognize under this Medicare Part C. If you live in another state or you move to another state, you're probably going to have to change that plan around. So, sometimes you'll hear people refer to these as supplemental plans. So, again, in order for you to get those, you have to be covered under Part A and Part B. And again, it's going to be run by a private insurance company within the state where you live. And again, most of the times they will add in that Medicare prescription drug program as part of it. And then a lot of times they have additional benefits that they will add in. For example, sometimes they will add in a dental plan as part of that supplemental plan. Or they may add in an allocation for a certain amount of money that you can spend on groceries. So again, there's a lot of different varieties. There's a lot of different variations that these plans have. And then the simple Medicare Part D is simply the Medicare prescription drug coverage. So again, that's going to be an additional fee that you would pay every month, but it would help cover the cost of prescription drugs. And again, it's going to be approved within the state where you live. In a lot of cases, if someone is on medications for a regular basis, this actually may be a very good choice for them to take a look at that would help them, again, to defer the cost of prescriptions. Now, those supplemental plans, again, it's through private insurance. And again, it's done through the state in which you live. Usually there's 12 standard plans. So it's what they'll actually cover would be they're going to kick in. They would pay those deductibles that you would have, any co-payments that you have, and again, any co-insurance. Again, it's going to vary from plan to plan. And so again, a lot of times what they do in order to make these plans more attractive, they do provide additional benefits, again, depending upon the plan that you select. Now, as far as eligibility is concerned, again, nothing is really automatic. Again, you and I, we have to do our due diligence here. Now, if you will get automatically enrolled in Part A and Part B, if, for example, you had already been receiving benefits from, Social Security Railroad Retirement Board, or if you'd been on disability for a period of time, prior to age 65, guess what? They would automatically enroll you. Or if you have disability benefits, from a couple of different types of illnesses or disease, then you would automatically be enrolled. However, if you don't have any of those qualifying circumstances in your case, you have to sign up when when you're turning age 65. I would recommend that you sign up because you can do it 3 months prior to you turning age 65. So the reason why I'm going to recommend you do that is, again, anytime you're going through this process, there is always a delay. For example, you think, oh, I'm just simply going to contact them. I'm simply going to call them and I'm going to get my Medicare card right away. It doesn't happen quite that fast. Again, there's a little bit of a delay. So that's why I recommend, as soon as you can, 3 months prior to turning age 65, you want to definitely, contact Medicare and get enrolled in Medicare. Now, as far as the costs are concerned, again, you know, Part A, that's the part that is, again, that is free to you. That's sometimes referred to as premium Part A. But again, if you want Part B, again, Part B would be to pay for doctor's visits, to pay some of the different co-pays. The amount for 2025 is $185 per month. Now, some people ask, well, suppose I'm married, is there a combination plan, with my spouse? And the answer is no, there's no family plan here. There's no combination plan. We have to do this as individuals. So in case of a couple that's married, it would be $185 per individual within that household.
Brendan, I'd like to just do a quick interjection. I know
Sure.
people who are on today have parents who are
Mhm.
that are approaching either 65 or elderly. And so I think this is good information. This he made a good point, I think, about there not being like a group plan for Medicare. So if you have parents who are approaching 65, I know my own parents weren't really familiar with Social Security, so I had to spend, a lot of time with them around Medicare and when do they apply, and the fact that they have to each apply on.
Mm.
I just want to remind you all that if part of the reason you're on today's session is to really figure out, not just for yourself, but also for your parents, like when
Mm.
I start helping them figure out when they should be doing this, just keep in mind, as Brendan mentioned, you have to make sure if you have two parents, they each do their own.
Yeah, and that's totally different from any of the other insurance policies you've had where you say we combine people. And again, doesn't happen. It's all done on an individual basis. So again, uh, if you want the additional policies, for example, the Medigap, the Medicare supplement policies, depending upon the term that you're using, you have to get Part A and Part B. Those are mandatory before you get in. And again, you take a look at that third bullet point. Those policies, again, they only cover one person. They're all individualized plans. You can't, combine policies. They're all separate policies. Also, you can't have prescription drug coverage in both Medigap policy and Medicare plans. So again, you're going to have one choice or another. And again, do your due diligence. Get the information. Again, if you're doing this for a loved one, then you want to make sure you're helping them. You go through, get all the different options that are available to you. And again, make sure you're making an informed choice as a consumer. The other recommendations you can do is you can contact Medicare and you can speak with someone and they'll give you great counsel. You can go over the different options and they'll help, you know, answer your questions so you can make an informed choice. And it's going to be the same way with Social Security. Asia, do you have a question? Go ahead.
I wanted to mention something too, because some of the people who are on the line, if they are on here for themselves, and maybe a bit confused between the things that they have to do for Medicare and applying for Social Security and how that applies to any of the retirement health plans they can get through their employer. Just know that regardless of if you are going to decide to get retirement health insurance through Pomona, you still have to do these steps that Brendan is mentioning. You are required to in order to be eligible for any retirement health plans through Pomona. Medicare is something that everybody in the United States applies for it. It's not just, oh, well, I've got insurance through, retirement insurance through my employer. Even if you're looking at those, you still have to make sure these steps that he's going over, they are applicable to all of US American citizens. So wanted to mention that. Just so they
Excellent. Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah, no, it is. And again, and I wish it wasn't as complicated as what it is. Again, there's effort being made to kind of simplify it a little bit, but it hasn't quite gotten to that place yet. So again, as far as Medicare, you can call them. We've got the website on the screen in front of you, or you can simply give them a call. And again, the people that will be there, they will answer any questions you have, and they'll help give you the information. So again, you can make an informed choice for your loved one, or you can make an informed choice of whether it's for yourself or your loved ones. Now, there's a number of different tools that are available. And one of the things that, I just put out there is just as a statistic. Last year, over 70% of the people that passed away last year in the United States did not have a will. Okay. So over 70% of the people that passed away in the United States last year did not have a will. And guess what it does? It makes life more complicated for the loved ones, for those that are left behind. So if your loved ones, your parents, or elderly aunts or uncles that you're helping to take care of, if they do not have a will, then I'd recommend that you broach the subject. You begin to have a conversation with them, because if someone passes away and does not have a will, then basically what it is, it's going to be the state that is going to step in and make the decisions on their behalf. So other tools that are necessary is basically what we refer to as a durable power of attorney. So what a durable power of attorney is basically you give permission to someone to be able to make decisions on your behalf if you become incapacitated. Okay. So that's what we refer to as durable power of attorney. That if the person becomes incapacitated, someone else, this is the person that is chosen to be able to make decisions on their behalf. So, for example, if someone begins to have problems, whether it's Alzheimer's, or if they get into an automobile accident, or if they have an illness where they become incapacitated, this is the person that is authorized to make decisions on their behalf. So when we begin to view it from that perspective, we also realize, wow, this could happen to me. This could happen to any of us at any time. So this is something, again, not only for our elderly loved ones, but guess what? For you and I, everyone should have that durable power of attorney in place, so that if, again, we become prematurely incapacitated, we cannot speak for ourselves, we've already authorized someone to be able to speak on our behalf. So if you're helping a loved one, again, before your parent suffers any sort of mental impairment, or before there's any sort of illness, the best time to have these conversations is now. Okay. And again, it's the same way for yourself. Again, if you don't have these in place, this is something you need to get into place. Now, as far as, do you have to pay an attorney to do this? No, you can simply go on your state attorney general's office. You can download these forms through your state website. You can talk with your doctor. You can talk with your medical facility, and they'll have all these forms available to you, and you can do this yourself, and it's not going to cost you anything. The other thing that's great about these durable power of attorneys, at any time, if someone wanted to change them, you can simply change these forms. Again, very simple, very easy to do. You do not have to use an attorney. If you want to use an attorney, then fantastic, you can, but this is something that you don't need to do that. So then we also get into, as far as, from a healthcare perspective, There's also what's referred to as durable power of attorney for healthcare, or sometimes it's referred to as medical health proxy or medical care proxy. Again, different terms, but it's all the same thing. What it does is give the person that you're going to designate to be able to make those medical decisions for you in the event that you're unable to speak for yourself. For example, you become incapacitated, you have an accident or illness, you're in a coma, or again, in some cases, it could be if dementia is beginning to set in. Again, then this is going to be the person that is going to be able to speak on the person's behalf. So again, before your parent suffers any sort of impairment, again, you want to make sure you get these documents in place. And all these documents you get in place, you're going to want these to be notarized. One of the places I always recommend that you reach out to is your local bank or your local credit union. And again, because they'll do this for you, and they'll usually do this at no cost. Now, the next thing we want to take a look at is a living will. So people say, wait a minute, do I need a living will and a healthcare proxy? And the answer is yes, you need all these forms. What a living will is basically it's a document that expresses, for example, if you were doing this on behalf of your parents, it would express your parents' wishes as to the detailed instructions that they would want to receive as far as their medical care regarding, once they become incapacitated. And again, it's going to spell out what sort of care that they want and what sort of care that they don't want. Again, you can get this through your state attorney general's office. You can get these through your doctor's office. You can get it from your local hospital. They all have these forms available to you. And again, I would recommend, especially when everyone is healthy, this is a great time to have these conversations and to get these documents in place. And I know from some people's perspective, they sit there and say, oh, this is a difficult topic for us to talk about. I totally understand it. Again, this would be a topic that we say, okay, if we can avoid it, not talk about it, or just assume, but guess what? Not talking about it and not putting these documents in place are not going to prevent the event from happening. So again, that's why the sooner we do this, the sooner we can have peace of mind. And again, from your perspective, I'd recommend you get a living will in place for yourself. And again, at any time, if you decide you want to change the coverage, you want to amend it, you can simply do that. Now, what happens is if something was to happen, for example, to your parents and you have that in place, the first thing that the doctor or the medical facility is going to look at is that living will. And they're going to say, okay, is there enough information in this living will to make the determination upon the medical care this person is going to receive? Because sometimes what happens in real life, there are sometimes specific sets of circumstances that occur whereby the individual is not able to, the doctor, the hospital is not able to look at that living will and say, yeah, I can't see with clarity as to what decision this person would want to make, even though they have a living will. And then in that case, what they would do is then defer over to that person that you have given medical power of attorney. So that's why you need all of these documents. It's not one or the other. They don't substitute for each other. These are all documents that we all need to have in place. Now, again, if you wanted to do these yourself, that's perfectly fine. You can do that. If you wanted to seek some assistance, if you wanted to look to hire a professional, then one of the people you may want to take a look at would be an estate planning attorney or an elder law attorney or a financial planner or an advisor. Or again, with Social Security and with Medicare, you have a lot of different options. You have a lot of different choices available to you. And the people from those agencies are going to give you great counsel. They won't give you counsel in these other areas. They'll only give you counsel concerning their specific program that they represent. Other places that I'd recommend you look at is, for example, if you have family members or if you have friends that have retired well and you're looking at basically how they have managed their affairs, you may also want to talk to them, ask them the things that they have done. What are the things that they have learned? Or if they could go back in time, what would be the things that they would want to change? So, again, I want you to kind of view this. There's a number of different people that you need to put on your team. So you want to make sure, again, you're getting the best counsel possible. And then again, take the information from a number of different sources. Now, as far as scams are concerned, one of the advices I'd always give to any sort of senior is to say, you know what? If you do not recognize a phone number, never pick up the phone and answer any call that you do not recognize the number on. And again, there's a reason why those over the age of 62 are targeted for scams. It's because number one, they have a tendency of having more time on their hands. They usually have a tendency of being very polite. They usually have a tendency, again, to want to pick up that phone. They want to be polite. They want to be respectful. And then also, there's usually at a stage of life where they have a lot of different resources that are available to them. So it makes them a very attractive target to the different con artists in the different scams that are out there. And then the other thing that begins to happen is once someone is scammed, they usually have a difficult time admitting it and reporting it. I get called in a lot of times, for example, from different banks or credit unions. Hey, we just had, customer come in and client come in, ask about this or that, want to do this. What do you think? And it's a red light. That's a scam. Again, you got to give them the counsel to address it, to prevent them, hopefully by not biting into it. Again, I can share with you for hours every different scam I've come across, and I can guarantee you tomorrow there's going to be another scam or another twist to it. Again, our seniors are being targeted left and right. So, also, when an elderly victim reports a crime, a lot of times they're a little bit confused, so they often are going to make poor witnesses. And again, a lot of times, because this is done over the internet now or it's done over the telephone, it's extremely difficult to actually prosecute these cases. So again, a lot of times the person gets away with it. And again, if someone has a difficult time with memory, they're not going to be able to give all the information, all the necessary details to those that are investigating the crime. Now, again, as far as the telemarketing scams out there, again, whether it's telemarketing, whether it's through the cell phone, whether it's through an email. But again, there's always a different wrinkle out there. Oh, you've just won this sweepstake, you just won this prize, or we've got a great plan as far as your healthcare products are concerned. We got a great plan for your prescriptions or inexpensive vacation. Again, there's no limit as to the different scams that are out there. And again, they're going to target those seniors. They're going to come off in a way that is very likable. They're going to come in a way that's very persuasive. And they're going to get your loved one to basically divulge their identifying information. So again, best advice I can give to everyone is if you don't recognize that phone number, never ever pick up that phone. If people followed that simple advice, we would have eliminated a lot of people from being scammed and victimized. So, what are the top financial scams targeting seniors? Again, a lot of times it's Medicare, it's health insurance scams, it's counterfeit prescription drugs. Again, saying, we've got an opportunity here for you to really take advantage of a low cost program. Again, it's simply scamming people out of their money. Or the prepayment funeral and burial scams, anti-aging progress, and another area that is sometimes we see this with the elderly is the pigeon drop. Now, if you're not familiar with the pigeon drop, basically what this is a scam where a lot of times there may be a couple of people working tandem. For example, what will happen is someone may be outside of a financial institution. They'll kind of be watching who goes into that financial institution on a regular basis to do their banking. And a lot of times, what they'll do is someone is walking out, there'll be the person that will pretend like they're walking in, and they'll say, hey, you know what? I just moved into this area and I'm not familiar with the area and I've got, a fairly large amount of money that I want to donate to a, reasonable cause. Can you give me a name of an organization where I could use this money to help out? And again, because you've taken that person totally by surprise, that person will say, well, yeah, for example, there's a um, homeless shelter, a couple of blocks over from here. They'll give the address. Then all of a sudden, the person begins to get a little bit fuzzy about that and say, well, wait a minute, where is it? And then a lot of times, then the person will say, you know what? Hey, why don't I drive you by there? Let me show you where it is. And then, all of a sudden they'll take them over there. And then that other person will get involved and kind of come walking out of that area. And they'll come up with a plan and they'll show the person, they'll actually show them like a wad of cash. And basically, they'll have a real bill on the front end, usually paper, and then the real bill on the back end. They say, we've got this money. This is our plan. We'd like to do this. And then they'll say, do you want to be a part of this? Would you like to contribute some money to this? And we'll give you the money to hold. That's where they'll get the other person to go back, put money, take out their own money, and then the hand is quicker than the eye. They give the person with basically the paper, and then they take the real cash. So that's what a pigeon drop is. Also, fake accident employees, where all of a sudden, they'll set up a scenario where the person thinks they had been in an accident. And again, it's all to separate them from their money. As far as charity scams are concerned, whenever there's especially a natural disaster occurs, these people will come out of the woodwork to, again, to separate people that are very good intention and have a heart to be able to help others. They jump in and they take advantage of, people's good nature. So other signs that a loved one may need extra help would be, for example, getting phone calls from creditors or continued phone calls from different charitable organizations calling to solicit additional donations. That's what we refer to as someone is on what we refer to as a suckers list. Or all of a sudden they have new friends, all of a sudden that are pairing, asking for favors. Or, you know what, I've got a grandchild that needs help. Can you give me a little extra money to help out on this? So again, if you begin to see any of these signs, guess what? It's probably a little deeper problem than what you realize. So again, my advice is simply don't pick up the phone if the person does not know the number. Or if all of a sudden you're getting companies offering credit card balance transfer promotions or collection agencies. Again, these are all warning signs. The other resource that sometimes people have tapped into with their loved ones is what we refer to as representative payee service. Now, what representative payee service is basically a service that is usually provided by a nonprofit agency that will basically manage the finances of your loved one. For example, each state has these different agencies that they recognize that are regulated to help watch over the finances of a loved one. For example, I've come across people sometimes say, you know what, my parents could really use some help here. I know I can do it, but I don't want to spend the time and take away from the time I want to be able to visit with them to basically manage over their finances. And I'm not really comfortable doing that. Well, what happens on representative payee service, for example, you can have their social security check or any sort of pensions deposited electronically to that particular representative payee service. And they would pay the rent, they would pay any sort of cable bill, electric bill, utility bills. They would do a budget with them. And then they would, once a week upload a prepaid debit card to them to help them manage any sort of incidentals that would come up with during the week. The big advantage of doing it this way is that if someone was looking to kind of scam them, there's not a whole lot of money that they could get at any one time. And then you've got someone else always kind of keeping an eye on things. So again, it's kind of, in some situations, this may be a good option for you. Other particular signs, again, if you see that, your parents don't know how much cash they have on hand, or all of a sudden they just don't seem as organized as they once were. Again, these are all signs. Or if you see bounce checks, or if you see them beginning to ignore unpaid bills, it's again probably an indication that something is out of whack. Again, this may be one of the other areas where you may want to take a look at one of those representative payee services. So on the screen in front of you, we've got a ton of different resources that are available to you. Again, any particular area, if you need to do a deeper dive, you want to get additional information, again, always recommend that you do that. Kind of position yourself to be a lifelong learner, to continue, again, to be updated, to learn all the new things that are going on. Again, also the additional resources that would be available to you. Now, again, if you do not have your own login with Social Security, this is the website you go to, www.ssa.gov. Get that login and password. And that way, you can take a look at your projected benefits at the different age brackets, or if you wanted to help your loved ones to be able to do this again, so you can come up with a plan as to what is in their best interest. Now, years ago, you used to get the statement in the mail. That's no longer the case. This is the website where you need to go to, again, to be able to get the information that's necessary. Again, realize, as far as collecting your Social Security, you do have a lot of options that are available to you. And that's why I'm always going to recommend that you reach out to Social Security and talk with someone, because again, they'll go over those different options for you in order for you to make the choice as to what is in your best interest. So again, in some cases, you may not want that highest benefit. Again, especially if you say, hey, you know what? I have other options. I may be able to switch to get it from my spouse later on. Again, number of different variables. So you've got to get that information